the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walton, joined by a very sleepy Sergeant Walton. Clint, how are you?
I am very sleepy today.
Did you just get tired?
I don't know why.
We just woke up.
That could be why.
You know, it's really interesting anytime that I hear something happening with law enforcement and then it doesn't go as planned and the response from other people is, oh, well, this is what you signed up for.
That's something that actually came up for me recently. I was thinking about that, and no matter what, like, I don't think you're ever prepared for those challenges and what you could be facing. And everyone always says, oh, well, this is what you signed up for. Well, not necessarily.
Yeah. And when I think back to when you started your police career and the evolution of all of the things that have changed since, you couldn't have ever anticipated what could be the thing that you signed up for so many years later.
Yeah, like that's like saying you signed up for the military or as a first responder and you signed up for, getting killed or being in the line, having a line of duty death, whatever it may be. Like the reality isn't there with that.
Yeah. And something I want to talk about today that I don't ever hear a lot of people discuss is secondary service, because your family actually didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. If this is a career path that you choose or that you end up going down, like, your family is, of course, should always be your priority, but your family didn't sign up for the drawbacks, the long nights, the missing of holidays, the missing of school events, whatever it may be.
This is not going to sound like there's a connection, but I promise I'm going to swing it back around. But I'm thinking about when you had your vasectomy. Kaiser is its entirely different breed when it comes to the realm of all things medical. And I feel like you can't do much of anything without going through the motions of like psychological evaluations and taking certain classes. And, my dad is a severe diabetic, and it got to the point where it was so uncontrollable that he's one of the patients who is an actual candidate for Ozempic. And before this, I implored his physicians and him to get him on this because we're going on like 10 years now of glucose at over 300 every day. And, he finally got on it, but it was an emergency because he needed surgery and his glucose was like 310, and he got seen that same day. And that's the only reason why they put him on it immediately. However, before that, they were like, okay, well, he has to go through the motions of taking all of these classes, and it's going to be like months in order for us to evaluate it. And I feel like we don't do a good job at the beginning of law enforcement when it comes to the psychological preparation for officers, number one, and for your family, number two. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this isn't an independent decision. I think that if this is something that you want to do 100%, you need to have that kind of force behind you to support you. And, one of the most difficult things that I see is somebody in a law enforcement career or who endeavors to be in one, and they don't have that level of support. You actually had a similar experience to this. I remember when you graduated the police academy, it wasn't this like happy thing on the end of your family. Number one, I think that there was a lot of envy from your older brother. And number two, all your mom saw was like a death sentence for you. And I feel like we need to do a better job at that mental preparedness. And whenever somebody asks me then or now, how do you feel about your husband being a police officer? My number one response to them is always like, number one, I'm proud, right? You need to carry a lot of pride when you truly understand somebody who makes this type of decision for this type of career in their life. But number two, I always try to express the preparedness. And you're very fortunate to work for the department that you do, to where there's a significant amount of training that goes into you doing the job that you do. And it's on a continued basis.
Yeah, you want to you want to set yourself up for that. And I am very fortunate not only to have the wife that I have to support me, to build me up, and to push me to strive to be who I should be, and to always want more, but also to work for a department that always wants us prepared for those inevitable situations that that no one ever wants to go to.
Yeah, and going back to your family didn't take the oath. You and I have a very unique dynamic in our relationship, to where I have a significant amount of independence outside of you in our marriage. And a big problem that I see is that, females in particular, they're married to somebody as a first responder, and I feel like a lot of resentment and even envy begins to build up when they don't have something of their own. And it's very important to be able to recognize when that's happening, because that is what I believe can ultimately end a lot of relationships. Yeah,
you need to create that dynamic. You need to have something that you're working towards, that you're striving for, and not identifying as, like you said, as just identifying as that police wife, or as this is who I am, and living that life behind the badge, and having a balance for yourself when it comes to that.
Yeah, and that person who isn't working as a first responder, a lot of the times I see them complaining about all of the responsibilities that they have in the home, that they're carrying that weight on their shoulders independently. And that's a big marital issue, right? That's not the officer's fault. That's not the spouse's fault. That is definitely something that I believe is rooted in a lot of the stressors that take place within the job. And an example that I'll give to you is, I see females posting something like, my husband comes home from work and I work full time too, and I'm the only one that takes care of the house and the kids. And, you do a really great job at doing what you can do when you are home. And I do that too, right? We never have any kind of labels of like, okay, you're the one that does all of the laundry, or you're the one that does like paying all of the bills or the groceries, or like whatever the things are. And I think that having those, and we have had those discussions. I've told you, like, I think I'm being taken advantage of because of X, Y, Z, or whatever the conversations would be. But it's important to have that open dialect, and to voice whenever something doesn't feel like it's balanced, or voice whenever you need additional help. And that goes both ways.
Yeah, you need to have those conversations. You need to create those shared partnerships, because ultimately marriage is a partnership, and you have to be able to support one another in your individualized missions, but also to support your life as a family, and to build that shared relationship, to being able to support one another, not only in your career paths, but also in taking care of the day-to-day that goes on.
I think too that it's important for the first responder to also recognize the angst and the disruption that takes place in your family's life because of the career choice that you've made, especially if that becomes a problem. So if the other is complaining about something and to you it's just them nagging, then perhaps there might be an opportunity there to have some discussion around, like, what is actually the problem. This could be something as minute as the other spouse having to cover for you because you're always absent. An example of this is, we were recently invited to a baby shower, which I really have no interest in. It's a baby shower. And my response was, okay, well, I'm going to go, and unless Clint has to work overtime because it's around Halloween and you may have to go to a rave, which is typical. So I'll come and he may or may not come. And like already having it established to where because that same individual, we were invited to the gender reveal party and we couldn't go because of you for work and me for work. And sometimes people don't quite understand that, I'm working like 16-hour days right now and you're working graveyard and overtime. And when you don't live this kind of lifestyle, it's very hard for people to conceptualize just how difficult that is. And so we do a fantastic job at creating those boundaries and then making it, we're not making excuses, right? It's a very much straightforward, like, no, this is why, or simply no, and I don't need to give somebody a reason why.
Yeah, and you're going to have pushback when it comes to making those decisions and creating those boundaries. They're not always going to understand or like it, but ultimately you have to draw those boundaries for yourself, because in reality they don't understand, and they probably won't ever understand. So if you create those boundaries on the front end, it creates that dynamic that you don't have to worry about.
And also, in wrapping this up, I think that from the spouse of a first responder, I can tell you that there's been so much of my life that I have chosen to sacrifice because of you and what you do for a career. And I think that it's important to be able to recognize those types of sacrifices and to identify what they are if you are the first responder, and then to showcase your gratitude for, giving up parts of your life or things about your life that you've totally had to adapt to because of what that individual has chosen to do for work, based on the fact that they are your chosen partner in life.
Yeah, being able to, there's going to be sacrifices having to be made on both ends of the relationship and in your marriage. And it's something that you create that dynamic amongst each other, and you're transparent about it.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below. And as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.